Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Best in the West, the podcast where we discuss all the happenings of the LEC in the weekend prior. My name is Tom Mathies, and I'm once again joined by Veteran to discuss the second week of the LEC Summer Split. It was a weekend full of delays, and that's also why we are delayed. But jokes aside, Veteran, how do you experience this weekend overall? What are your thoughts?
I'd like to get some sleep sometime was most of my thoughts on the first day. That was pretty nuts. That was actually the first day I tried to fully live view, because on the
Yeah.
first weekend I was busy with some stuff in real life, so I didn't get to fully live view all the days, though I tried to do as much as I could. So week 2, day 1, first day I get to fully live view. It's like at least an hour-long consistent podcast of not League whatsoever because it hasn't been played yet.
Yep.
But it was really interesting to see teams kind of solidify their identity anyway once we got to them. And the second day had the banger Fnatic BDS game that was both horrifying and yet the most entertaining thing I've seen in a long time, you know?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I'm sure we'll get to that at some point, but I also have mixed feelings about that one. But about the delays, yeah, I think obviously it's not the Riot, the LEC is not at fault for the bugs that are happening, right? It's like a tournament realm client thing. That's mostly the reason for these delays. But at the same time, I was there for the whole weekend as usual, and we were people in the audience were just like, at some point the groans of another delay was like, I guess we have to cheer for the delays now just to mentally recalibrate that these things are a good thing, just so we get to enjoy our time here as well. But yeah, it was thankfully in the studio they have air conditioning, because Berlin was absolutely terrible again this weekend. It was
oh god, yeah.
yeah, it was 36 degrees and very humid as well, so there's no way for you to sweat and get all that heat out of you. But yeah, man, it was a long time. Normally I'm home at 12:30ish on Fridays. This time I was home at 1:45, and it was also only because
Yeah.
somebody literally gave me a ride from the studio to about where I live. So I was way faster there as well. Yeah, it sucks, and I hope that these things are addressed. I'm not sure who I have to send this message to. Please, Riot, somebody at Riot, fix this tournament client, because the what do you say, the champion swap bug is occurring everywhere. You see it in every region. It is happening apparently. Not as terribly consistently, I think, as we saw last weekend in the LEC, where it's just literally every single game that it happened. But yeah, we'll see about that. But yeah, to recap a bit, overall the standings are now pretty interesting, because at the top we have Excel in G2 with 4-1. Then it's Astralis, Fnatic, Mad Lions, and Rogue at 3-2. Vitality is the only team at 2-3, and then we have Misfits, SK, and BDS at 1-4. So a shift a bit in the standings, some for the better, some definitely probably would have liked to see different results over the course of last weekend. But it's been an interesting weekend, and I do share the overall sentiment that I think, the opening weekend is always okay. People have no real clue what to actually play on stage, and now we see it more gradually shifting into what might be their style, what they want to play towards, and that was very interesting. Is there any particular team you'd like to start us off with to kick off this episode?
Kind of two teams,
Sure.
because the really interesting game for me in terms of early game for sure was Mad Lions versus Excel.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, one, because of how this iteration of Mad Lions differs so much from previous iterations, and also because of how Excel themselves are actually playing these early games out. Because, first week you can have, suspicions of how teams are doing things, but, 3 games isn't enough to say 100% it's going to be this way every time. Whereas I think with Excel, the big thing for them, and I guess I can pull up VODs to show on this one.
Sure.
So I'll bring up Mad Excel, and maybe it's also good to bring up the first Excel Vitality game as well.
You mean, yeah, the one that wasn't cancelled?
Yes.
Yeah, because as people might remember, XL versus Vitality also caused another delay on the broadcast because there was an in-game bug, and then it seemed to be resolved with a chrono break, and then they continued for a few seconds, and then there was another bug, and the whole game had to be remade, which actually raised an interesting discussion, because like people were saying there was no way Vitality is gonna win this game. XL should have just won that game, or you always get the sentiment, especially if it's like such a delay. But at the same time, I remember Rogue versus Mad Lions from the first week, and if that before the Elder Drake at any point had delayed and people would have given that win to Mad Lions, we would have seen Rogue pull off that clutch victory in the end. So yeah, it's always
I
difficult.
mean, I definitely have to say that like I I would understand the frustration, but like what I saw a lot was people trying to cite that one time in NA where they gave, I think it was like Echo Fox or something like that, the win based off them having like an insane gold lead and stuff.
Yeah.
I would never advocate for that. I'd always prefer the game to just be remade over that.
Yeah.
Especially there are teams whose entire identities almost are based on scaling heavily.
Yeah.
And at the same time, like, do I really trust the judgment of all the referees, etc., when it comes to who definitely can and can't win the game? There's the human element to put into it. There are tendencies each team has. Like, there are so many ways that this gold is like fictional, right?
Yeah.
And in the like, I'll always remember in the ERLs last year in summer, there was a Polish team called IHG that wasn't supposed to win anything because they're just kind of like they were like a full rookie lineup, and we're talking like they're all just being paid like 200 a month kind of deal, right? And they ended up going all the way to 5 games in the finals. The biggest thing I remember from them was their games against AGO Rogue at the time who were really hyped. They were down, I'm not exaggerating, like 10 to 12k gold every game.
Yeah.
And they won 3-0. They won 3-0.
Jesus Christ.
They didn't even have the better scaling composition. There was one game where they were down 10k to Gangplank Victor, which last year's summer was like the king scaling comp, and they still won anyway because they had 2 incredible team fighters.
Yeah.
And it's like there are so many ways that this gold can end up being fictional, that these structures can end up being fictional. We saw Misfits basically come back almost every game that they won last split, right? Like I would never agree with setting a precedent that you know this gold, these structures now mean the game is kind of over, blah blah blah. I'd always prefer a remake. Both suck. I think the remake one sucks less and will have less of a huge impact on the future.
Yeah,
as frustrating
I
as
agree.
it can be.
I agree as well. The thing is just with, especially when it comes with these very long delays, you have teams that are after this game, Rogue, Misfits, Rogue versus Misfits, BDS versus G2, and Mad versus Fnatic especially, that start so much later, and that genuinely sucks for those teams as well, right? Like I'm fully with you that I'd rather see a remake than to let some weird arbitrary parameters decide what is a win and what isn't. I think League has them, like when you're like I don't know, I think it's like when like all turrets are down and you're banging on the Nexus or something and then a bug occurs or something. I think then it's when they say like you win. But yeah, for Mad Lions and Fnatic especially, who started way later than they should have, it sucked because you get into a game day thinking, okay, this is my regimen, this is what I do, and I have to stall until this, so I get in my best mental state. Some players really benefit from stuff like this, and then it's just completely disrupted.
For sure.
Yeah, which is terrible for them. And then, what is the solution? Like, do you skip it to the next day so they play 2 games on one day? Do you skip it to on Monday so they don't play in front of no audience? Like it's all very tedious and it's all very difficult, but in the end it's the players who suffer. So I'm not really sure what a solution would be either, other than fix that fucking client, please.
Like fix the game is the only actual solution where no one gets hurt, right? But like I feel like I think the biggest reason why people don't like the idea of remakes as well anyway is because inherently as an audience member you feel really shitty when the whole like 20 minutes you just watched didn't even count.
Of course.
Now, obviously, you can look at that from the lens of the players as well and be like, well, they also just wasted 20 minutes of their lives, right? But that's also going to be true if you just hand one team the win, because the other team also just loses out on all the time that they just played.
Yeah.
So I just wouldn't spoil that way. Obviously, just fix the client.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah. Hopefully. At
I mean,
some point.
it's yeah. I mean, if they're going to change the game every 2 weeks, that there's always going to be bugs like this. Is
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
There is. Oh well. So let's talk about Matt
yeah
versus Excel then. It was played on the second day and eventually Excel won. I'll
yeah
pull up your screen here.
yeah.
You just need to full
So
screen it for me.
yeah.
Yep.
So I'm gonna show this first from Excel Vitality. Just actually no wait. You know what? I will show Excel Mad first. Why not?
Okay,
Right.
sure.
So couple of things. Let me know when I can talk.
Yep, you go ahead.
Oh no, yeah. So a couple of things here. So first off, Excel actually played Yumi both games. Mad Lions played Yumi on their other game against Fnatic, and Excel pick it away from them here. Something that I really do like about them taking Yumi is that I think the best way to play against Excel, if you don't try to attack this early game aspect of them, is probably to catch them out on a full grouping later on, right? So a situation where you may have to sacrifice the wave state on another lane, but you win that team fight is going to be worth it. Yumi is a good scaling champion for that. Mad Lions as well, and we'll get into this at some point. They're a team where currently their like initial 8 minutes aren't the best, right? Until they get first roam off. So against Fnatic, they did a straight 3-man grouping on mid to unlock Niski, which turned into like topside control, right? You can go back and watch the VOD yourself. Before that, they weren't doing well in lane. Humanoid is just a better laner than Niski. Right? Wonder was doing really well controlling topside.
Yep.
Right? And bot was a Lucian lane, right? It was a Lucian army lane. What are you going to do with that, right?
Yeah.
But they were really good on that 3-man grouping in towards topside, and that turned into their Herald play. Then they did a nice swap afterwards, which I guess I'll shoulder that bit later.
Sure.
There's a whole chain reaction that happens off their initial play. But Excel are ahead on that, and they do this thing consistently every game, where basically at around 5 to 6 minutes, they will pretty much without fail drag their jungler bot side no matter what else he could be doing. And they utilize this. In this case, they get a double whammy because they're playing a Lucian lane as well. So they get priority from that, and they get to secure Drake off of it. And then on this reset, because they'll always be ahead of enemy, they always make sure that they're matching on it. And then they do this every time without fail. They push. Mad Lions always like to do this Gromp thing when they're about to prep for the other side, but they don't send Kaiser midsection here this time, which is kind of weird to me. And then they do this simple shift as a bot lane into midsection and up in towards Herald, right? And then this will pretty much always give them significant numbers on top side that allows them to play whatever they want there. And that's how they get their initial thing off. Not a midsection grouping, but bot for tempo. They do this again. Here versus Vitality. They have Viego hover really heavily on bot side for this crash, where they have Yumi again. Like, try to do this without having jungle on bot side, and Yumi lanes are generally not going to have a good time against most lanes. And then they get the tempo off of that. They get the recalls. Enemy is delayed on the recall, obviously, because they got crashed in first. And then on the next reset of the enemy, they don't challenge that reset. They let them go on bot side. I'm looking at the mini map here. I don't know if that's cut off for you guys.
No, it's there.
Yeah, and then they shove in again and they do the same rotation towards midsection, right? And this is the point where Alfari is going really ham on Finn, because Finn's overstepped some, but he has his full bot lane on rotation, whereas enemy bot lane now has to choose between economy on bot and rotation towards midsection. So even though they are able to go towards topside, they have full numbers disadvantage. But XL are doing this like every game. They're making sure that their bot lane gets tempo, and that's how they secure mid into topside into Herald and start their gameplay. The rest of the mid game for them is about trying to maintain control of 2 lanes while sacking 1, right?
Yeah.
So they'll never try to play like a 3 lane setup, which G2 like to play. They always shift a potential 3 lane into 2 lanes and then into 1 lane. It's actually really traditional. This is how we used to do League 3 years ago. They're just very, very, very efficient at it in mid game. And this starting thing is what's really interesting.
Yeah.
And I contrasting just very quickly to contrast with Mad. Mad, on the other hand, are happy to like ignore bot lane almost entirely. Blah 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 blah. They have Yumi set up as well. You can see that they're not really playing for the priority on bot there. and then early game's not going so well. They recall off tempo. They're perfectly fine with Unforgiven being stuck on bad wave on bot, and they group 3-man. Sorry, I skipped a bit too far there. They group 3-man on mid section with this level of priority from them. Humanoid's not going to step up and try to stop Nisky. He doesn't have any control over whatsoever. They don't know where Yumi is. They don't know where Viego is. And yeah, from this 3-man, they're able to explode the game. Yeah. So one team attacks directly mid without their ADC, but XL attacks mid with their ADC every time, right? They maintain that grouping, but they have to play around bot first to secure this shift. That's what they're doing. They're constantly shifting from one side to the other. It's like sweeps, you know? They do sweeps. So that's what XL are doing. I find that really interesting, this dichotomy of these two teams.
Yeah. So what I will first say is that what I wrote down for both games of XL is that it never felt like XL was out of control of the game. Like, it always felt like they knew exactly how to adapt. And actually, for the XL Mad game, I was in an interview before, and I came out of the interview, and I think it was like 12 minutes and was like 8-0 in kills. Like, what the hell happened here? Because they just took control over that game. And obviously I watched the VOD back to see what the hell happened there, but they weren't even like super aggressive or something, you know. They just realized very well, okay, Mad Lions is here at this point. We seize control here, and then, as you said, you could see that ripple effect like all over the map. And then, like, pushing these advantages, they were able to very accurately determine where they should strike, basically. And this led to insane leads for, I think, Marcoon was having a super good game, and Patrick, they both like got early kills, and they used it. They just continued to use these advantages. And for the XL Vitality game, actually for the I'm just destroying my room here. For the first one, the game that actually got cancelled, the XL Vitality game, I had the same notes. Yeah, it's terrible, but you saw that same pattern with them. You saw they realized where Vitality was and just said, okay, well, if they're all here, we can push our advantages. Actually, maybe not all the time cross-map plays when Vitality was doing something, but more so realizing it's kind of this fluid thing, you know, where you push into a pillow and the other side lifts up. That's what XL understands super well with the compositions that they make. And it was, as you said, it wasn't something like revolutionary to see, but it was just all so well done. It was
consistent.
Yeah, it was.
Right?
It was consistent, and it was clean. And I'm not sure if this is something that's gonna last for them. But to have something like that already nailed down this early into the split is such a big benefit for this team, because you have to imagine it can only go better from here on. And they have this leg up over other teams who don't do something like this at this point. Now, I will say, like, obviously they lost their game against G2 in week 1, I think. But that was mostly like as we discussed in the previous, because G2 is just so like skill checky, and they're very much like, I'm just gonna be in your face. Go ahead.
That's crucial though, right? Yeah. Because you have to disrupt. If they get started on these transfers, then it's very difficult to break them, because they'll always play 2 lanes. And so if you ever try to maximize your economy, which teams that want to make a comeback should do, they should try to maximize their economy, then you'll lose out. And they had Yumi every game, so you probably don't even have time on your side anyway. So you have to stop the snowball. And G2 stopped the snowball by just skill checking them earlier than they could start getting these sweeps off. Right? So that is one way you could do it. You could also just contest that 3-man skirmish on bot side, you know? These kinds of things. I think so. No, wait, okay, no. I thought I was actually behind the game, but I'm not on this one. Sure. There was a really good example of the sweeping thing that they did with Finn in this game at some point. But yeah, I mean, all of these are sweeps in some way. But yeah.
Yeah, and just the way they held on to that lead, especially against Mad Lions, was so impressive, because Mad Lions is a team that we like, you know, once team fights come around, they like to engage, and they like to try to pull it back, and they're generally pretty decent at it. But this time XL was just, because they had amassed such a big lead, and because they knew exactly how to stay in control of the game,
Yeah.
they didn't allow mad lions for any of the situations that could potentially get them back into the game, and that was just very nice to see from this team who in Spring Split was still so very much trying to find their way of playing, and now it seems like they have this nailed down. Also, a very fantastic performance this weekend, I have to say, from Nuke Duck, who in week one I think was maybe a bit quieter, but this week it seemed like he just wanted heads. It was like he was out there to kill. Was super.
I mean,
Good to see.
something you could always say about Nuke Duck is that he's an incredibly good skirmisher and team fighter, right? And he always has been. And the way that these guys are playing, they're going to get a lot of skirmishes and groupings off. So I like that about him. I found the bit here actually. I was looking at the wrong game.
Yeah.
I was thinking like, wait, when they had Gnar, didn't they have Lucian? But they had Gnar both games. So yeah. So like, here's an example, right, where they have a 3-man setup coming in. Gnar's about to enter bot, right, which is pushed in towards him. They've got a swap on Armut here, and what they end up doing here is they shove in on towards top side, right? They know now that Gnar is going to be able to get priority on next wave. So what they do is they abandon top side entirely and they shift Lucian in towards mid. Instead of having Lucian try to defend top side or wait to catch waves on top side, they're like, okay, you're going top side. We have tempo on bot side. We have tempo because we've been ahead the whole game, right? So we'll always have tempo on side. We'll give up the top side and just play these two lanes. So they end up shifting towards mid. Now they're threatening 2 towers for 1 tower that Mad is threatening. And then this also gives them priority on a link to bot. Look how Nuke Duck and Patrick are positioned here, right? You can't see a mouse, so it would be pointless there. But they're leaning very heavily towards this bot side play because they know XL can only collapse on them from top side. So if they just evacuate towards bot side, they continue to play at tempo. No matter what, Armut has to recall at some point on top side. So Armut teleports towards bot side because they have to contest this. They can't just keep that map state. They're losing that map state, and XL are ahead, right? This isn't revolutionary stuff. Again, you can find examples of this from like 3-4 years ago, but everybody on the team understands their role in this shift. They all understand it, and that's really, really good. Like that is honestly good coaching. Like the team as a whole is playing really well together. They've learned how to play really well together. They've all learned their role in these shifts. And honestly, like I don't generally like praising coaches, but I would just praise Youngbuck for this because this is very reminiscent of what Fnatic used to do when he was on there as well. It's just taken a while for us to see this consistently being done. I think the issue was like, how do you get that starting point off? And right now they figured out how to get it off in one way. If they're contested on that 3-man bot, I'm interested to see if they get it off another way. Because the Vitality game got very scrappy.
Further down the line, it got very scrappy. But yeah, absolutely. But I just wonder, because you praise Youngbuck, and definitely, I think he played a crucial role in this. But I also keep wondering, like, okay, because they had this Korean bootcamp, and everyone keeps talking about it. I also like to keep talking about it because I spoke with Nudok about it, right? And it's like, not that they got completely their heads kicked in, but I just wonder if something like this is just like, just repeatedly see, okay, this is what they're doing, like, we have to do this as well. If that then it's something that finally clicked for the team as a whole, which is very important, obviously, because you can't just have one person say like, hey guys, this is how we should play. And then not understanding it, but just trying to follow what you're doing without understanding why they're doing it. It seems like now at this point the whole team understands why they're doing what they should be doing, because you see every team member is moving correctly when they're doing these moves, and that is not something you see with every team. You see it's like what's a good example? I'll say like early G2 days for this spring split, you would see Caps and Jankos move in a certain direction, maybe towards bot, but then you would see Flacket and Targamas, because obviously they were still trying to figure out how to play together as well. But then because Jankos is the big shot caller on the team at this point, he takes the lead in how G2 should move. You could see them reacting slowly to what things like and a bit awkwardly, and it was like not an oiled machine yet. I think now they're doing it better. But with this XL lineup, you see that it's all connected. It's like one hive mind that's like coordinating how they should play.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, obviously the coaching stuff comes in there as well. And it's hard to say how much of a part coaching stuff plays in any team. But what you say, like Fnatic under Young Bucks lead was a team. I'm not a team that watched like a lot of Fnatic, but I watched like VODs of their most important games because I wasn't around back then. But you could see that this team also knew how to leverage the control they had over the map into basically like calmly shutting down
Yeah.
the opponent and building a wall around them in increasingly smaller circles. Which is fun to see. It's cool to see that is still something that he can that knowledge that he can still transition onto like newer generations, even though all these players on this lineup have been around for a while.
I mean, they have. Also, I do wonder how much that affects it, right? The fact that they're all quite experienced,
Yeah.
that might have something to do with how they're able to. Like, only Marcoon is a rookie here, realistically, in any sense of the word, right? Finn's being around for a long ass time now.
Mm-hmm.
On the Korean bootcamp note, I don't think I describe so much to it being like a Korean bootcamp, but what I like about bootcamps is the mental reset that it gives players, right? You want to create some sort of environmental distance from an area where you weren't doing so hot, right? And in Korea, everything is refreshed,
Yep.
and these are all decently mature players, right? So it's not like they were looking to point fingers at each other for not going to MSI or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
But once you remove them from the environment that they've gotten very used to, where they've gotten set in their ways to, and give them a new one, like you do automatically when you go to Korea for the Korean bootcamp, it's much easier for you to start engaging with new concepts, learning and developing, than it is if you just stay in your old stale area. Like an example would be this is obviously like a personal example, but like I find that I read the easiest if I go to like a different caf, rather than if I just stay at home and read. I actually absorb the things that I'm reading if I go out and like try a new caf, new restaurant, something like that. It helps engage you, and everyone has these small things like this. They know where they change their environment, they do a bit better. Boot camps achieve that. Now, the difference between doing Korean boot camp and an A boot camp is immediately your levels of respect for the players that you're playing against goes higher.
Sure,
right?
yeah.
No offense to the Americans, right? But like, go to an NA boot camp to scrim NA teams is not going to be so much. Whereas you're going to check yourself a lot against Korean teams on the Korean boot camp. Their reputation precedes them, right?
Yep.
So that definitely benefits. But I don't think I've seen anything here that makes me think they've got some secret sauce from Korea, right?
Yeah.
I think they've just developed well on concepts that aren't even new. These are things that like people on the team have already done on previous teams. They're just doing them really well together now.
Yeah, well, it's just mostly because I think whenever EU and NA also go to Worlds is always I think Grab said at some point, like we're always playing catch up with China and Korea. So I think like having it there in like an intermediate period, you're like, okay, where are they now? So that when you go to Worlds at the end of the year, you're not like, okay, they're 10 miles ahead, but maybe they're 5 miles ahead. Like keeping it real for the American viewers under us, kilometers. Yeah. I will say, because well,
yeah,
say, but
I do want to clarify. I don't think we're behind them in game knowledge. I just think our teams are less disciplined.
Yeah.
I think when they're ahead of us, it's because they understand all of their roles in any particular macro move that they want to make. But I don't think those macro moves are so far ahead of something we're doing. Very often, I feel like Europe is ahead when it comes to which champions are actually good. Very often, Korea has to copy us when it comes to that. China has to copy us when it comes to that, right? Which is definitely saying something when it comes to China, because they just have so many goddamn teams.
They do. Yeah.
And yet we still end up being the guys that invent stuff like the Sona Tom Kench thing, like all of this stuff, like we yes, I mean we're a bit weird like that. I do think though that their teams come together as five much faster than our teams do, and that's always an area that we've been weak on, to the point where our innovation has been the thing that's kept us competing with them.
So did you have any other notes on Excel? Because what I wrote down was just basically very good control over the game. I was super impressed by Marcoon over the weekend. In the way he just kind of as you said, as a jungler, he had to kind of play and listen to the team and what they want. But I do think that he in the way he played. Took a lot of charge as well. For it seemed that he was taking a lot of charge in how they wanted to approach the game. So
he's a huge factor in how they start this snowballing off in the first place,
yeah, of
right?
course, yeah.
So, yeah.
He has to be there, yeah. Do you want to talk more about Mad Lions? I think
we can do.
Because they played against Fnatic, they beat Fnatic off, which is obviously very good if you want to contest for playoffs, which is I guess their minimum at this point after last split. But they probably want to finish at least top 4 for the playoffs, so they have the double bracket advantage. But yeah, so they beat Fnatic and then lost to Excel, but we've discussed the Excel game already, where they basically had no control because Excel, just beat them around the map consistently. But for Fnatic, I think Mad Lions was actually pretty decently in control during the game.
Yeah, I mean after they got that initial midsection play. So actually, I can just show the sequence from the
absolutely,
from the video if you want. So they pull off this 3-man midsection play about it's loading. Don't do this to me, guys. Okay, there you go. All right, cool. So let me just throw it up to 1080. Boom. All right, nice. I'm not paying ridiculous for this internet for nothing. So they pull off this 3-man mid play into topside, and this is how they open Herald, right?
Yeah.
What's really interesting for me, and I brought this up last time, my opinion hasn't really changed on Mad this much, just like I got a better idea of how they're planning to break open early phase, and I like 3-man mid plays. I just don't think they include Unforgiven enough in these.
Mm-hmm.
They like to put him on a scaler, it seems, and just kind of leave him be until he can be a insurance later. But then an early rotation team like XL do stuff to them. But still, what I like is when they choose not to, because they're aware that they have a scaler. Yeah. Enemy teams literally just pick lane bullies. Volley will be useless, Lucian will be useless, Nami will be useless. I was tweeting about this. Every time I see a team do Lucian, Nami, Volley Bear, it is an instant bet on the other team. You know,
interesting. But teams genuinely think that it's a good lane, especially they think it's just we're gonna win this lane and we're gonna be able to transition that into later game advantages. Like they all seem to consistently agree with this to some point.
I mean, I'll give you my theory on it.
Sure.
I think that, from my experience in scrims, and I don't know, maybe they've calmed down at an LEC level in the last year or two, right? But in my experience in scrims, by 20 minutes, you have 30 kills.
Mm-hmm.
And in those scenarios, Volley Bear, Lucian, Nami are going to do incredibly well because you're skirmishing almost non-stop, right? Everyone contests everything in scrims. Everyone's trying to skill check everyone in scrims, right? They're very different. And so you end up a lot of the time with people picking these heavy early game junglers, laners, blah, 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 which eventually transitions into later game stuff by the time you get to playoffs. But I think the early push for these champs is based on the fact that scrims are so skirmish heavy early and people just confuse that with the champion being powerful,
Right. Yeah, so you think that this is just an advantage I should say rather that they underestimate how different real stage games play out, where people are just calmer. They are just going to be more considerate of,
You have to, I always have to remind people this, but a typical player doesn't they don't think about the game and break it down logically like we're trying to do here, right? Or like analysts try to do on streams and stuff. They do mostly do things by feel.
Yeah.
Which is how they got so high. Yeah. And so I can see how intuitively they would end up falling into these early game champions very often from scrims, right? So many scrims just get paused at 20 minutes and then they just go do other things, they start next game. But what I find really interesting is that after Mad do this grouping on top side, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the next rotation, they drop Unforgiven topside, right? And I find that quite weird. And it's okay, so are they just going to abandon Unforgiven when they play next side all the time? Because the next objective should be Drake.
Mm-hmm.
But they're clearly not actually looking to contest Drake. What they actually do is they have Viego farm bot to top here, right? They shift to make sure that he gets his bot side uncontested. But they never plan to transition this shift to bot, right?
Yep.
They have Unforgiven play safe top side. And then when they lean top, he's doing Krugs the whole time this happens, right? He's actually losing minions while this happens.
Mm-hmm.
Now that they've moved top, though, now he shows up on the lane, and they instead trade that Drake for topside. They are avoiding the skirmishes because they know they'll win if they just break apart the map, put the map in a good state for themselves, get economy, and get Unforgiven Kaiser to a higher level later, right? That's also how they end up utilizing their herald, right? They're just trying to give Unforgiven economy. They give up this Drake for it. They're not just trying to contest Drakes every game. Now, this shouldn't be a big deal, but as someone who keeps watching the ERLs where every single neutral objective must be contested, this is the kind of thing where if you're a narrative team, you should think about this, right? If you have a scaling composition with Yuumi, with Zeri, sorry, forgot her name, then do you really need to go for a contest on this single Ocean Drake? No, you need to make sure you're strong enough to contest the third and the fourth, right? And this is how you do that. You get the Herald and you play economy for Unforgiven Kaiser. You can avoid these fights, but then if Hylissang decides he wants to skill check you, by all means start the grouping. Like, this leads into the heavy chunks on these guys. And then I don't know why, but Fnatic decide to re-engage with this flank and stuff, even though
like, this is exactly a moment I wrote down as well. It's like, Rezzork seemed to be a bit too aggressive, a bit too eager to go in here, not fully realizing that it's Mad Lions who very much have the advantage in this case.
I put this on Hilly and Razor because Hilly was the first one to start initiating beforehand, and then they obviously both re-initiate with Razor. But like, I don't understand either of them going aggressive here. And either way, the point is Mad Lions, they utilize this hell, they get full platings on Zeri, they do all of that for that, they give up this Drake. The giving up of the Drake is again the crucial thing. When Mad Lions don't contest is way more interesting to me than this part here where they do contest. It's like, well, if support jungle are going to offer themselves, you obviously
of course you're going to take it. Yeah, so I mean, let's talk about Mad Lions not contesting it because, like, a bit more, because I think the storyline with this team last year was very much okay. They play around the map very well. They understand where like better than any European team the macro of the game. But then in the spring split, Cartier and Humanoid left, and Humanoid was apparently this big macro genius and is now trying to teach the same thing to the Fnatic players. So do you think that this Mad Lions is approaching those levels of understanding the macro that they had last year? Or do you think that they still have some ways to go? Because it's interesting that nobody, to me, at least from, reading interviews and hearing about the team, Niski was never somebody who was explained to like talked about as like a macro genius, and neither were like any of the other Mad Lions players that are currently on there. But it seemed that combined, they're quickly getting to a point where they understand much better how to navigate the game as a team.
So, I would disagree with the narrative of Niski not being. I don't want to call you a genius, Niski, if you're watching, but like of not being really strong.
So
full clarification here. Niski was actually my MVP for Summer Split last year.
Yeah,
right?
I think he said so. Yeah.
Which was a dramatic difference from when hearing he's coming back. It's like, well, he's going to have NA syndrome, so probably not going to go that well. But then in Summer, like the big thing for me was that he was making up for Whippo's very single-minded way of playing jungle. So I'm not even sure I could call it Whippo's way because Razork's gradually turning into that. So this is just how Fnatic seem to perceive jungle now. You basically just gank bot repeatedly, ignore all the other lane states, and just leave it up for whatever. Niski never ignored those lane states. Niski would fix top. He would lean bot. He would do everything around the map that Whippo wasn't doing, mostly fixing top side, but he was also there for bot plays, and he did that almost entirely himself, which is why I gave him MVP, because he was giving the most single value to his team of any player, right? He fixed every single hole that they had. Now, when I think about Mad, and I think maybe I could demonstrate this with an extension of the clip from earlier, actually.
Yeah, while you looked it up.
Mad clip.
Yeah. While you look that up, I'll just say maybe Niski is that genius. I'm just saying like nobody ever spoken about him like the way they spoke about humanoids in that way, and he might very well be. I haven't. You know what? I'm gonna do an interview with somebody from Mad to talk about this, and we'll dig that all out.
Well, this is my thing.
Yeah.
Right? So
okay, sure. But
Well,
it could be that because he understands his role as a mid laner so well, that the puzzle pieces for the other players fall in their place for Mad Lions super well, right? Because he is like, okay, this is my position as a mid laner. Now I need to do this, and because of this, the others also understand much better how to react. Whereas Humanoid was more of the speaker, the teacher, who said like, "Hey, this is what we're gonna do. This is what we're gonna do, and this is what we're gonna do."
yeah.
So maybe in a different sense, he evokes those responses from his colleagues.
I think Humanoid definitely. Well, I mean, also at the same time, I think Fnatic genuinely thinks that just spam ganking bot and ignoring everything else is a good way to play. And if
We'll
Nisqy
talk
disagreed,
about
I don't think that
we'll
would
talk
matter
about
too much.
Fnatic a bit more later,
But
obviously.
like
But yeah,
on screen right now,
have
like
it. Yep.
this is yeah, I have it. Yeah. So this is the bit where this is after they've done their tempo play bot side, but now they actually have the tempo and they're shifting. The fact that Kaiser is bot is really weird to me, right? The fact that Unforgiven did Gromp before moving bot's also weird to me. You'd think you'd want to contest this to prevent them getting this shift in towards top side, or you'd have Kaiser already be moving here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here, bot lane fails, and then what happens this here, this shift on towards topside, is because Armor is heavily overextended when actually you don't know where Kaiser is on the map right now, and you don't know what Nisqy is looking to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't have enough, not Nisqy, I mean Nuke Duck,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You don't have enough information here to be able to do this. What I see here is two side lane macro failures, right? And the only place it's looking to contest at all is midsection. And the only times I see Mad Lions break things open early is straight through midsection. Everything is so midsection focused and the errors are so side lane focused
Mm-hmm.
that to me, it seems like only mid can be consistently doing these calls
Mm.
because the other lanes just aren't doing it, right?
Yeah.
Maybe El Yoya is stepping up as well. I know El Yoya is quite smart. Especially like if you want to see how smart Elio is, you should actually look up some of his older Spanish interviews. He goes really in depth on his process there. This
Mm-hmm.
guy was like outsourcing jungle coaching and all of that stuff and talking about it very extensively. I don't mean like coaching himself. I mean looking for people to help coach him. Right?
Yeah.
He talked about that quite extensively.
Mm-hmm.
Like this guy's really smart, so it could be him as well. But for me, I mostly just see everything coming straight through midsection. So I don't think it's on side lanes. I don't think it's on Kaiser, etc. I think Nisqy is replacing the humanoid voice, which would be what they wanted in replacing Rika, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So maybe not to the same extent. Like I think humanoid probably has a more complete understanding of the game,
Mm-hmm.
but humanoid's a really rare kind of a talent.
Mm-hmm.
I do think Nisqy is the macro voice for them, and I also think he did a lot of good macro for Fnatic.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think what did Nisqy? I think he got his TF in one game as well, so he got exactly what he
Yeah,
wanted as well
yeah.
in how he wanted in what he wants to do. Right? It's just like, okay, he's gonna roam. He is gonna look for opportunities in those side lanes, in top and in bot, to see what he can accomplish there and help his team out, as you said. So yeah, I'm not sure if we're gonna see much more of his TF, similar to how as we'll talk about later as well, John Moon's Pike might be something we saw for the last
Hey,
time. Last time.
he still has the rise. He still
Last.
has the rise. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. True. He still has the Rise, or maybe he lets the
Yeah.
other team play Rise, and then he'll just play Silas to hijack that ult. But yeah, I think so. We've had Excel and Mad Lions. We've discussed their accomplishments of the weekend. Let's see. Is there any other team that particularly stood out to you? Because I kind of want to talk about Fnatic, but I'm not sure if you have anybody you want to specifically talk about.
I mean, like, I'll say the least interesting team to me right now would probably be Rogue, just purely because I feel like I'd be repeating myself from last split a lot. But I
Sure.
guess, like, we can still do
Yeah.
that anyway.
Yeah. Let's talk about Rogue. Go ahead.
I mean, yeah. So, yeah. God, Rogue. Oh Lord! I mean, we get to talk about the Pike on Jianghoon if we talk about these guys, because I think that the reason why Pike was so effective into Rogue for them on the early game setting, obviously Rogue ended up winning the game,
Mm-hmm.
is because they still just all you have to do against them is just attack topside, and it's not because they're the one that is weak, but it's because they've never had a jungler that plays a complete map, and I think you're still seeing that every game. Malwang is really good at capitalizing on good lane states, and they have solo laners that are really good at getting good lane states for themselves. But Jeonghoon's Pike was on top side in a scenario where you'd like jungle to be escorting at the very least on here, but jungle is not escorting whatsoever. And so this lean from both Xerxes and Jeonghoon ends up doing really, really well for them.
Yeah.
Incidentally, I think it's insane that this guy's getting Pike at all.
Yeah.
I respect the Moby Boots hustle. I respect the top side leans, especially against Rogue. But when this guy got on Rakan, it was literally just recalling bot, recalling bot, recalling bot, recalling bot. And then on Pike, it's like, like the differences are so... And then on Tom, he was just like offering himself to the enemy team. So it's like, just, guys... it's a static ban. Maybe you want to ban something else, but you just remove a player if you ban Pike. Just remove it. Like, just remove Pike. I don't understand why he's allowed to get it. Like, it changes so dramatically when he plays it.
Yeah. Well, I think what's so interesting to me about Rogue last weekend, like when going over my notes, is that against Misfits they seem to be pretty in control, but then Misfits, because I had this poke composition with Corki, Ezreal. And they also had a Gnar in there. They had a Khan. So like it was this poke composition that started to come online, and then Rogue actually had to sweat for a bit. But against Astralis was the opposite, where Astralis early actually was in control of the game. So to me, it doesn't feel like Rogue fully understands yet how to play around what the enemy is trying to do. And I did an interview with Larson, which actually I published it today, so you probably haven't seen it for people watching. I published it yesterday, right before the recording. And I asked him what's going wrong with Rogue this time around. And he had a very interesting point, which I never would have expected. And he said, heading into the split, we were way too arrogant. Like he said, like 1 week before the split, they were all feeling good about themselves. They were feeling themselves like you know, that whole vibe of of course, you know, it's gonna like we're gonna smash this and blah 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 blah. But then they started actually playing and they realized, oh, this is not good at all. But because they had been so confident about themselves heading into the split, they never, I guess, felt the urgency to drastically look at themselves and, okay, what do we need to do heading into this split? And I also said, well, like, how are you arrogant? You lost the split. What are you doing? But he said,
but they go to the finals, right?
Yeah, it's true. But he also said, I have no idea what happened there. So Rogue seems to be at like what Larson said. The mentality was actually a big problem for them, and not in the way that like they were shattered. No, the other way around. Like they were feeling way too good about themselves. And that's just so that I would have never expected that from Rogue, because they always seem the team that's very down to earth and very humble, and actually maybe a bit too humble at times in how they approach the league.
I just was to clarify a divergent point from me and Tom. Sure. If you reach the finals of the LEC and have an ego about it, fair enough, in my opinion.
No, but you got crushed. You got 3-0'd. It's like you've never won
by one team.
Sure,
that means that there's 8 other teams they smashed. Like I don't condone it. I understand it. Nah. They definitely did. From the players' perspective, I understand it. All right. I do think that's the point where you do need management and coaching staff to be like, all right, we're up here. We need to be like here, okay? Because we actually do have work to do, right?
Yeah.
But the players celebrating being in the finals, like again, like I mean, coming second is not, well, I guess it's weird to say that because people completely restructure their lineups if they come second. Coming second is not like a cause for immediate concern.
I'm not saying you should be concerned, but like walking it, like as Larson described it, was like they were like coming into the split like, oh yeah, you know, it's another split, we got this, and stuff like that. But like, okay, but do you actually have this time around? Because like and also previous lineups, they haven't won the LEC yet, you know, like they haven't proven yet that they have they have gotten like on the team that they have what it takes to go the full distance. So I would be like, obviously if you dominate the regular split and that reverse sweep against Fnatic was very impressive, but ultimately you got humbled by G2, who showed you how far you were from actually still being able to win this league, because this G2 in shape, like this split, if they get there again, like they're gonna smash you again if you don't upgrade. So like, why?
Yeah.
Yeah, to me it
No,
was
I mean, I again, I get your perspective. I
yeah.
just feel like if you just left players to their own devices and they've reached the finals, they will feel fucking good about themselves, and I understand it. If I was a player and I reached the finals again, right, and reverse swept Fnatic, and ignore the fact that Hylissang handed me that reverse sweep every game, I would feel very fucking good about myself, and I understand that. Again, I think this is just a time where everyone around them, the management, the coaches, the staff, blah, 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 are the ones that should temper that flame. I don't blame Larson for it at all. They definitely are the exact same team coming in now that they were last split, which is bad because towards the end of the regular split last time, they were figured out. Teams had figured them out.
Exactly.
Right? So they definitely did have work to do. I could understand maybe they come into playoffs having thought that, oh shit, we do have work to do, right? And then they just get all the way to the finals anyway and be like, oh, okay, it was all a bad dream. Like, I can understand that somewhat. But again, it's everyone around them who needs to be sober and like drag them down. They are the same team. It's really irritating that they are the same goddamn team. Like, it's so fucking irritating. The difference with the Misfits Rogue game is that they had a ridiculously hard scaling composition and they had so many ways to defend top when they're playing center on bot side, right? So it's harder to abuse the same errors in honestly what is just jungling. Like, I don't think this is a team that has ever actually understood jungle. That's been a consistent issue across multiple junglers, right? This isn't just like Malwang hate or something. I had same criticisms when they had Inspired there. They did not pay attention to fixing waves at any stage of the game. That's always been their issue. And their strength's always been their solo laners. Which is why, again, I'm worried about sound like a broken record here. But like at some point, this has to be fixed, and they have to stop taking the fact that they, reach finals as like, great. I guess we can just put up our feet and chill and just keep playing our game, because right now our game will never win you the split, and that's the only place Rogue can develop to. They have to develop to being a team that can win the split. Anything else is either stagnation or they're losing, and they have to stop justifying it by the fact that they've done the same thing over and over and over again. Great, we know you can get this result. Nobody is impressed anymore. You were closer getting it last year in spring, right? No one's impressed by the same result anymore. You definitely shouldn't be, and it's not a justification for not fixing these small flaws. Like, they're big flaws, but it's the same fucking flaw each time. Fucking address it, please. That's...
Yeah,
it's irritating. I really, really like Larson and Odo, and I want them to win.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel robbed of Hans Sammer winning something when he was like the best player in Europe at the time.
Absolutely.
Like,
yeah,
I
think.
these guys to
Well,
win.
what is interesting is because you say they're the same problem every time, but Rogue is thinking about things differently, right? Because they brought Malrang in to start playing actively around their laners, where last year they had Inspired, who was like, okay, the laners play more for him, but you still have these very talented solo laners. So yeah, I don't know. It's for me, because again, like the games between them and Misfits and them and Astralis did feel very differently. I have a hard time pinning down like why this keeps going wrong. Then maybe it's because Misfits as a team was just still very very bad and still doesn't have things figured out that Rogue can get away with the early game, and Misfits is not a team that realizes how to punish Rogue early, and then by the means of their composition, the way they've drafted, that poke got online earlier. Because I genuinely did feel like, oh no, is Rogue actually gonna lose this? Because they did not seem very confident in the way they wanted to close out that game against Misfits. So I'm not sure how you felt about that game in particular and how Rogue approached it.
When I see Senna plus Enchanter bot side, all right, and they have any scaling damage on anywhere else, it's like, oh well, I guess the game's just won.
Sure.
You're just waiting to win at that point.
Senna Seraphine,
It's actually quite a disturbing combo that they had there. So I was never really like that worried that they could possibly lose that game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So then maybe Misfits is just not the team that could realistically ever punish Rogue in that sense.
At the same time, like you said it yourself, like they're scaling him with a poke composition, but it's a poke composition against a healing composition. That's literally a direct counter. Like your poke doesn't matter anymore at this point.
Yeah.
So I don't. Yeah, I thought it was a really good. Counter to what Misfits were trying to do.
All right.
Especially because they had that really weird Corki priority. No, didn't they first pick Corki? It's like, why would you?
Yeah,
why
Corki first pick, then Senna Wukong.
Why, man?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, is this like a champ pool limitation? I guess we can talk about Misfits a little. Like, is this like a champ pool limitation, or why? Like, they did this both games, no? If
They
I
had all
recall
mid
correctly.
laners open actually, because Rogue banned Zeri, Yumi, Viego. Yeah. So I
Yeah, Misfits Rogue, Misfits were their first pick, Misfits SK their first pick Wukong. Corki was banned that game for some reason. I think Corki's a shit champion, by the way. I don't know why teams are going for it now. Thing you have to bear in mind with the durability meta, guys, right, is that in a lot of scenarios, what was previously winning so hard, which was heavy range, right, doesn't matter if you can afford to trade HP to close that gap and you have more burst. So champions like Corki, Jinx, which were doing so well because there was so much damage that range became king, which also meant movement speed became king, don't matter so much if the enemy is now all fucking Malphite on crack and can just trade HP to close the gap with you, and they can do decent damage to you once that gap is closed, right? Obviously, Corki can get to a point where his rockets just hurt a lot.
Yeah, we
But
saw
if you're
Humanoid
going
do
to
that, I think, in week 1.
yeah,
Yeah.
but if you signal so early that you're doing a poke comp, Senna and any enchanter is so good in the durability meta, and they counter that entire kind of play, right? Corki's something you have to wait really late in the draft for, and champions like Azir, which I don't know why they didn't go, given that Larson's such a really good Azir player, they just shit on Corki. Like I don't know why you'd ever do this champ early.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you were talking about champion pool limitations for Misfits, and actually, Viteo isn't the first. Like, if you think, okay, who on Misfits would have champion limitations? I think Viteo might be the last person I would suggest there.
Really?
Well, because he played so many different ones in spring, and I think I think it seemed like something Misfits was comfortable doing. I think of all mid laners, he played the most different ones in the spring split. So he wouldn't be the one I would think of when it comes to champion pool issues. But it might be that Misfits thinks, okay, in compositions that we as a team can play, we are limited to these mid lane champions that we can pick. Yeah, so but I also don't get a Corki first pick. It's something I think they're the only one who do this.
His champ
Oh,
pool
Fnatic also
is
first pick Corki against BDS actually.
yes. Okay. So oh god, yeah. So when it comes to VTO champ pool, the champions he played last split were Cassio, Zoe, Ryze, Orianna, Corki all once, LeBlanc, Syndra, Yasuo, Victor, Akali twice, and Sylas 3 times. This is roughly the same pool that he was playing a few years back. Of these champions, Orianna's shit, Corki's shit, LeBlanc's pretty shit. Ryze is basically unfucking playable right now. Cassio actually does have a place as a flex, but don't tell people that. Akali's pretty shit right now, and Sylas is like pretty relegated. Like there are nice ults
it's
that
a
he
niche
can
counter
steal,
pick, but
it's a niche counter pick. Most of his pool just doesn't exist right now. Syndra as well. Like most of his pool just doesn't really exist right now. Zoe exists and Cassio exists in certain scenarios. I think they should tend much more towards Zoe. But yeah, like most of this pool is actually functionally quite useless, and it's the same champions he's been playing for a while. So yeah, even though he's played a lot of champions, the champions themselves that he was playing aren't things that transfer over into current meta. Like there isn't a single Azir game that.
But it was more but it was also because last year he was like literally the Zoe and I think LeBlanc, and I think during the year he also picked some like a bit up on Syndra. But compared to last year, his champ pool got so much deeper that I would think, okay, if this meta shifts towards different mid laners for this split, then he would also be able to get those up and running. But yeah, but Misfits overall.
Yeah, So to clarify, I don't think like if you're going to single out anyone as having champ pool issues, that it would be VTO. It would obviously be the guy who's turned into a Lee Sin one trick for some reason. But with VTO, these are the same things I've seen him play for years, and most of them aren't really good right now. So and I haven't been convinced that he's actually learned any of the things that are good right now. They're not prioritizing them. So yeah, I'd still say there could be an issue there. I don't think that's the least of their issues. Obviously, their gameplay around midsection is just bad right now. Fully, I just deny entirely that they are getting camped mid. They're not.
No. I think yeah, I don't know. People seem to slowly be coming around to that as well.
I just need to get off Reddit.
Everybody needs to get off Reddit. Yeah.
And I will say the game where they actually did set up Neon to carry, that was SK, right? That they played against.
Yeah, they played against
Video,
SK, yeah.
Video played a big part in that, and also at a much earlier stage of the game than I'm used to seeing Video playing at, which is a really good sign for his development. Like I like that a lot. Like they were doing very heavy RE plus jungle leans towards bot side. I think it was Viego, but you know, if it wasn't,
they had Wukong. SK had the Viego. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So okay, great, fantastic. We're no longer just on Lee. But yeah, those leans towards bot side were really, really crucial. And then Neon obviously was like able to do really well in that game. But it's difficult to say that is gonna like save Misfits when it's so rare for them to be against a team that just does nothing, you know, because SK just doesn't really do anything at any stage of the game. They try to catch you on rotation, that's about it. Yeah. Misfits were a team, and this is going to be my small one. Well, not really. It's like small. This is basically like this is my thesis. Misfits were a team that was winning a lot by scaling really, really hard. They got delusional about it, and now they can't go back for some reason. I don't know why. They've just decided they can't go back to heavy scaling, but they should go back to heavy scaling. It's a fucking Yumi meta and everything. I don't know why they're not contesting all of these enchanters and stuff.
Literally have kill in the meta, by the way. But yeah.
Yeah. Like I don't know. Like this is they need to stop being delusional about themselves. They were never a good early mid game team. They're gonna keep losing if they don't go back to these team fighting things. Their new guy Relevant is a really good team fighter. He'll fit really well with that, right? Just go back to it. Neon's really good in all these team fights. When you get him ahead, maybe put him on a composition where he doesn't have to be ahead. Yeah. You know, like this kind of stuff.
So I think overall with Misfits, maybe you know SK is a team that is gonna end at the bottom regardless. So maybe like I did an interview with Neon about their first victory, and he also said, you know, like it's SK. I don't really count this win, but he was also very reflective in saying, you know, like we got many wins in the spring split that shouldn't have counted. Like to me, in my head, those were a loss, and I saw that we have many issues to fix. But I think for this team, because we said after week 1, this team looked completely destroyed. You know, like there was no sliver of joy within the team, and their faces were all very sour. Understandably, if you go 0-3 after what wasn't like objectively obviously an overperformance in spring split, but still you had that result and you come into a split with different expectations and going 0-3 in the first week. I think for rookies such as Irrelevant, but also Zlatan and Merza, getting that first victory against, even if it's against a team like SK, it is like it's a building block, you know, like it's okay, we're not that bad, you know, we can still beat a team, you know, like because if you lose against SK, and there's no diss to SK, but, you know, like, ultimately, those are the teams that are going to be competing for not be, like maybe contesting for playoffs if they do really well, but ultimately, maybe, like, with BDS and previously also Astralis, like, not being last, right? So I think, like, at this point, like, such a team should just grab every opportunity to get some hope. It's like, okay, what did we do well in this game against SK? And I think, like you said, like, SK didn't do much, but Misfits was, like, they played very proactively in the game, it felt. And I think, regardless of who you do this against, you should take those things like, okay, what did we do well in this game, and how can we take these parts and implement them in our future games as well? Just so as a team, for the environment, you have something to hold on to, and not just say, okay, it's all a disaster, it's all ruined, it's all doomed. So I think for the team, that victory was very important. Or at least I hope it was an important victory for them to start building something together. Because in the end, you know, it's a long split. You have 6 more weeks to play now. There are 13 more games to go. If you're already throwing in the towel here and not like taking every small win as a win, just baby steps at a time, then you might as well just go home already, right? So I really hope for this team that they see this as something they can build on. But yeah, I mean, like overall, they felt very proactive in their game against SK. They got to play their game, mostly because, as you said, SK didn't do the thing. So maybe they find somebody, okay, this felt good. If we get to play our game, this feels good how we do it.
Yeah, I will say though, just losing in general, and I understand maybe from Leon's perspective, like the SK win doesn't really count. Like at some point, maybe it's not best for development if you play late game stuff now, but you will not develop if your team just checks out of the game mentally, you know?
Yeah.
So I would still just go to that kind of playstyle anyway. I hope they do build from the experiences that they've had here, but like so much of it was like handed to them, you know, like SK are a team that don't seem to win unless Certus like 1v9s mid lane and then does like roams that aren't punished, because he doesn't even do like consistently good roam timings or something. He just like runs around like a madman, you know, and a team that can punish that you're still not going to win against, you know. So this is a team where I understand it not counting. There may not be much to take from that, except wow, I guess 4-man roams to bot side work. I'm just worried about the mentality of the players there, because that's going to determine how receptive they are to actual development.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see any, like I don't think any of these guys are like horrible. Like this doesn't strike me as a team that is full of like the worst players in the league.
No, absolutely
you know?
not. No.
They actually have some of the best. They just have no early game understanding.
Yeah, I think it's just like there's so much inexperience on the lineup that just gets maybe exposed. You know, where I have seen Zlatan, like even if it was on Lee Sin mostly, but I have seen him make great plays. Actually, also on Hecarim, he also played well on Hecarim. And yeah, irrelevant. It's a bit too early to judge, maybe, but you know, I think it's just. I wonder if these guys are gonna get the time they need to get to that point, because they might be there. You know, there's a reason why they got upgraded to this roster, because they showed a lot of potential in ERLs. So if they can actually get to that point where they also have that level of performance in the LEC, it might take longer than the time they are gonna get, which would be a shame. But we'll see how that plays out. It's way too early to say.
If I was them, I would sit mid jungle support down, or maybe just sit all 5 down and watch how XL are doing their shifts and Mad are doing their shifts early, because that's what they need to learn from. They just need to stop getting dicked early and stop ignoring mid 2v2, right? And
just don't be bad, you know.
have a system, you know. Maybe steal the system from someone else, but have a system, and then within that system, just get everybody on timing on it, right? Make sure that AD knows what he's doing here, top knows what he's doing here, and mid jungle support know where they are moving, because this is what really matters to them right now. They're not doing anything early that isn't handed to them. And they need to look at these teams that have good systems early and learn from that.
That actually reminds me a bit, like, because of, I think it was SK last year or the year before, where they would consistently always get Drakes a lot. They would always go for this, and it would always get many Drakes. I remember this very distinctly because I play LEC Super Fantasy, and I would always put the Drake item on the coach. I would always be like, "Yeah, give me those points." But it's actually, you know, like it. Ultimately, I think SK got 60. You know, but they made like playoffs. But they had a system. You know, they had something in place from which they could build, and what you just said reminds me a lot of them, in a way that Misfits doesn't seem to have one at this point. And if you get one, maybe, you know, like, maybe you're not gonna end top 4 of the regular split, but you start finding ways in which you can help your players grow in the game and help the team develop. So that's the most important part, right? Ultimately, if you are in a position like this, how can we make the best of this?
Like, at least you're doing something. You know, like. There are teams that have just grabbed a shot caller, even if that shot caller is not smart about the game, and they just win with it because they're making decisions. They're at least all on one page. And if the enemy team isn't all on one page, you've already won. Even if you're reading the wrong book, you know, you've already won. So just do that, and that's it. I guess. Like, I don't know. They have good players. It really sucks because they have good players. Just, I wish I want them to figure it out. I'm on your side, Misfits. All right.
I mean, like also as they're very likable org, and they're very likable players on the team. They get a lot of sympathy and excitement if they succeed. You know, like I think that's definitely something you can say for this lineup at least. All right. Well, we mentioned. Yeah, do you want to
We
continue with
can't.
Misfits? Sure.
Well, no. I was just gonna say we can't talk about all the last place teams that are talking about BDS. No.
Oh, you want to go to BDS? I was gonna go to SK, but sure, we can also do BDS. We spoke about them last week, pretty extensively in how they're not making decisions, and or like rather always the decision is we have to contest. And then heading into this week, the expectations were obviously this team is gonna 0-2 because they were playing G2 and Fnatic. But then they beat G2 and had an incredibly close game against Fnatic. So it defied all expectations that anybody had. But I was very pleasantly surprised, obviously, because like I respect Grabs a lot and I wish him all the best. But also, I love the underdog story, and then them just coming out swinging and actually upsetting G2 and almost upsetting Fnatic in what was simultaneously the most tense, but also the most annoying game to watch in recent years. Because both, like, honestly, like in the first 25 minutes, like okay, this is cool, and then it went on for another half hour. It's like, okay, these teams are both just terrible. Like, it's just it was excruciating to watch, but in a way, like I can't stop watching.
Yes. Oh god. Okay, the Fnatic BDS game really annoyed me. And so obviously not a good look for Fnatic, right? They won this by the skin of their teeth. Yep. I think objectively Fnatic's comp was better, by the way.
Sure.
I'll tell you why, all right? And it's because BDS had no lockdown to deal with Zeri or Corki, right? The only real way they had to deal with Zeri or Corki was with Shinkrov Ultimate, right? Yep. And now I have a real bone to pick with how the narrative ended up going about this, sure. Okay? Every time Razork was quote-unquote caught by Shinkrov, Shinkrov was inting, okay? I love you, Shinkrov. You are literally why they beat G2. But every time he used it on not Zeri and not Corki, the fight was over. They now have no effective way of locking down Zeri or Corki if they don't hand themselves to them, right? So every time he burned it on Razork should be sat there like, what? Why? You know? And he was. And I want to point out even, later you go in the game, there are times where Shinkrov ults Razork when Razork has QSS and it just gets insta-cleansed, right? And it's like, what are you doing? Yeah. But everyone was like flaming Razork for some reason for this, when Shinkrov's the one that's blowing their only actual chance at winning the fight. If you can lock them down, Nuclear Ink can actually deliver some decent bursts, but he was building basically purely for his E. He wasn't building for his R. And please, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but I used to be like the AP COG guy on Twitter back in season 5. But like, actually, someone found an old tweet.
No, it was Nuclear who was. So just to recap for people who weren't fully aware, so BDS composition especially was very fun. They had Senatom Kench. Then I watched that LEC Comms video that they always publish after the weekend in the draft phase. And Grabs was just saying to Shinkrov, so Shinkrov, what do you feel like playing today? And he said, actually, I think I'm going to play Skarner. And then he locks it in and Grabs says, okay, sure. And then Shinkrov just casually drops after locking it in, yeah, I haven't played this champ in 2 months, but we'll be fine.
I mean, he's probably looking there and thinking, how the hell do we lock down Zoe?
Yeah.
We have his son, right?
Yeah.
And that is the big thing that they don't have at that point.
Sure, yeah. But then to round it out, they had Kokma mid and Gnar on top.
I like Cog into Corki, because he outranges Corki, right?
Yeah,
That wasn't like the issue.
Yeah. People are very upset with his build, I think. Because
I was very upset.
He didn't buy tier until like 40 minutes into the game or something like this. It was super late.
And then he built. So I have to clarify this COG misinformation that's going around. Sure. Right? Seraph's Embrace is not good on Cogmore. Mura Mana.
Yeah, it is Mura Mana
on Cogmore.
Yes.
My God, man! Like, you guys are buying the wrong tier item. Okay. Yeah. Remember, the ultimate has an AD scaling. The Mura Mana passive procs on all of your ultimate shots as well, and you will weave in autos on all of these combos, right? And you can run the maths on all of the combos. Mura Mana just dicks all over Seraphs unless you're only using E. And the build that Nuclear ended up doing was like a full Rabadon's Death Cap, I want my E to one-shot you build,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Just wants to one-shot EQ, rather than play for Ultimate.
I mean,
Which I
he
don't
did do
like.
a shitload of damage. It was like ridiculous, but yeah,
It's impossible to pick the champ and not do damage. You have
yeah,
to be doing effective damage at the
exactly,
right
yeah.
points, you know, and that's the biggest thing. Because like eventually you're gonna have to be poking these guys before you get to in range of them. Because like how are you gonna get in range of Zeri and and stuff if they don't offer themselves, you know? So
Yeah,
that's gonna be a huge issue.
but
There's actually a tweet someone found from ages back, by the way.
sure.
I mean, from 5 years, from 2015, 7 years ago, where Wonder was atting me when I was late to get to the hotel and said, "Get here now, or we build Rabadon's Death Cap on Cogmore." Someone found that during the thing.
Nice.
So yeah, but yeah.
But yeah,
Anyway,
I mean
go on, what were
that
you gonna
game
say?
overall, good on BDS, you know, like to go toe to toe with Fnatic, in a way, but it felt similar to that game they played in week 1, against SK, where they had so many opportunities to get ahead and to close things out, but then fumbled it. But this time, I guess Fnatic was maybe just as bad, as SK was in that game against BDS, where it's just like literally like crawling over the finish line with both legs broken. It's it's just barely
Yeah,
getting there. But it felt like both of these teams have so many things to work on still. And that's after BDS beat G2, which was like objectively I'm much interestingly, like I'm much less concerned about G2 losing against BDS than I was after Fnatic won against BDS about Fnatic, you know? Like I'm like seeing the game Fnatic won against BDS made me more worried about them than I was worried about G2 losing against BDS, because I know G2 like every now and then has just a screw up game, but in their next game they're just fine. They'll just play around and they'll win again. But this Fnatic lineup, the issue seems to be much more ingrained in this team than G2
yeah,
just
yes.
fluking one loss against a
I
team like
mean,
BDS.
they normally play really heavy on bot side, and it's as simple as Shinkrov was just bot side first, right? Like,
Yep.
obviously, I flamed Shinkrov for ultimate usage later, but like
Sure.
early game, he was bot side first. He caught
Yep.
Hillisang out in Tribush.
Yep.
That turned into really good kills on bot side, and bot side ran away with the game on that. Like, they ended up with a winning 2v2 on bot against Fnatic. At that point, Fnatic don't even know how they want to play the game. You know, they're so used to playing with heavy advantage on bot side. So that was really, really good on them to understand that. I think on BDS's other game against G2, legit, I was just looking there, and it's like you just gave them all their one tricks. You know, like X Matty was really big on Ezreal when he was in the ERLs, partly because Targamas just didn't think bot existed at a point and just spent the whole time topside, and Ezreal's the easiest to survive on. But he got as such to be such a good team fighter on that champion that, given that this is a team that will contest everything, you know, give them Irelia on Aggressivo, Ezreal on X Matty, and see what happens. You know, all that's up in the air is potentially mid jungle, but then it's just Shinkrov has the easiest ganks midsection all the time with Lissandra. So it was an easy comp for them to play out, a comfortable comp for them to play team fights on, and G2 are happy to handshake all of this when BDS are the most comfortable, you know? I like that they got to show that they're skilled, right? It does still somehow almost feel like they cheated their way there. Again, early game, the biggest thing for BDS is still Shinkrov. That guy just understands not just how to play the map, but who he's playing against as well. Because the way that he got advantage against G2 was to spam ganks on midsection with Lissandra, right? And the way he got ahead against Fnatic was he was ahead on the bot side plays, right? So the different teams, different win conditions, Shinkrov adapts to them each time, right? Sorry for the flame, but your Skarner ult later still sucked. So this is their biggest advantage.
Just to make that clear.
Yeah, just to make that clear. I mean, at this point, Shinkrov may be the only guy playing jungle properly. Like, it's really sad, but he may be the only one.
Interesting.
So I like it a lot. What I'm seeing from him. It's their big advantage. Once they get their players comfortable, they can show that they are actually skilled in fights later as well. So that's good as well. Like, there's a lot of good things about BDS here that make me think these aren't just flukes. They could actually go playoffs, right, with this lineup. They are so close to being good, you know? Just that little bit extra, little bit more teamwork, right? And they're just really fucking good at that point, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm rooting for them. They're getting there, you know? They're not as one-dimensional as they were last split.
Yeah. I mean, I was just very happy, as I said, for the team to get a win. especially for like, I mean, as I said, for Grabs to get the win against G2, just an extra sweet, just because he was their former coach. But also just to get a win with his team after what was a disaster week, opening week, losing against basically everyone you were competing against for not being last, or like making playoffs, if you want to aim a bit higher. Then coming into a weekend where you're like, you're basically going 0-2, and then just getting a win like this is just it's very nice.
Honestly, like this gonna sound really meme. This isn't cope. It's a viable strategy if you're against a team like G2 as a bottom place team to be like, fuck it, just pick all your one tricks. That is completely viable. And it's a genuinely good thing to do for your players at that point, right? So props to them for that.
What I did think, like as you also said, with is that in that late game, because it was such a shambles, and Synchrov was also just not playing well with the Skarn and not realizing who he should ult, rather. like who
well, getting impatient with it. I think he knew he should ult.
Because you saw the guy, you saw him like just popping Predator, just running around, saying, okay, who's there? And like, if anybody had showed their face, he would like fuck it, that guy's dead, Like, I'm going.
I mean, it's very tempting to distill, and I do it a lot as well. Like, especially if I'm playing, I will do this a lot. It'll be like, oh, well, if I kill this guy now, it'll be a 5v4, so you win. No?
Yeah.
Well, you now have no way of reaching upset humanoid, so have fun with the rest of the fight. Like that's like, but I can understand. Oh, Razork's kind of out of position. I could get him. When it's like, well, Razork's not really out of position. Just if you do go for him now, you're kind of fucked, no?
Yeah.
So, by all means, do it.
Yeah. And there was also, like, this point, I remember, in the game, where, like, BDS was around the Baron, and Xmedi got caught out and by Fnatic, and then Synchrov, like, normally he would just walk away, but he was hovering around there, he was just still standing there, and then Fnatic was like, are you gonna do anything? And Synchrov was still just like walking around there, and Fnatic said, okay, guess we killed this guy. And then Synchrov also died. It's like, what happened there? Why didn't you just go back? But yeah, it was a chaotic.
We ride together, we die together. I respect it.
Yeah, it was just like still mourning the loss of Xmeti there. It's just like I can't leave him yet. I have to join him. In some way.
I would love to hear comms of that, and it'd be something like, right, Xmati, just bait them out here, right? I swear to God, we kill them all, right? Xmati just gets one shot. And he's like, shit.
I've ult. Get him in. Something like this, yeah. I don't know. A very chaotic game. But yeah, I guess we can talk about Fnatic then, because they played against BDS.
I feel like we've talked about Fnatic, like, over the course of the whole podcast, So I don't know how much more stuff I have to say.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, what I want to say.
Yeah, go for it.
I do want to say something about Fnatic. Is that no, it's not like terrible, but they have all the puzzle pieces to be an amazing team, right? But I've never seen a team leave the LEC stage as quickly as I saw Fnatic leave the stage after they lost against Mad Lions. And like, it was fast, and like, this was the game that was at the end of the day, right? It was super late, so obviously that's gonna piss anybody off, right? That you stay up so late, you destroy basically like the whole rhythm you had set for the day, like all your plans, or like how you wanna play, what we talked about earlier, like this regimen, and then you get a loss against Mad Lions. Obviously, it's gonna feel shit, but even again, like just in general. Like they left so quickly. I've never seen it. Like the game like the Nexus, like it ticked down, and I saw Rezork, who is an emotional player. He said that, like he was like, unblock, roll, headset down, gone. Like, and I blinked, and most of the others were gone as well. And it just doesn't feel. And this is also Yamato tweeted this. Like, there's a lot of work to be done, but this is not a team at this point. Where I feel that they are there for each other in these difficult moments, which can be tough, obviously, at times. But I think when you are in this position more than ever, it needs to be a team. It'd be like, okay, listen, guys, this was a tough one, but like together we if we just back each other up, like we will find a way to get there, because they eventually in spring split, you know, they also had a bit of a difficult start, but then
Yeah.
towards the later weeks they started to really flourish as a team and started to really play well. And I think if I look at this team now, and the way they behave, the way they seem to interact with each other, like it doesn't feel like there's any stability emotionally for this team, and that can be so damaging because you have all these very talented players, but if they are not gonna be at a position where they feel reassured, or they feel like this is a team that wants to work together, then it's not gonna happen. Like, you can be as talented as you want, but ultimately this is a team game, and if you don't make sure that you have people you can rely on, and those need to be your teammates, but when you know, when it goes to shit in the game, you need to have your teammates to be there, and it just doesn't feel like this is a Fnatic
Well,
that's there.
I mean, yeah. I mean, Razork's been quite open in an interview. Was it with you that he said it? Where he said that he is learning where the team needs him to be, right?
Yeah, that was with me.
Rather
Yeah.
than, yeah, rather than playing his own game. And to me, like, given everything you've said, like, and obviously, like, everything that I see in game just indicates this to me. It's like Razork's definitely not playing the game the way that he thinks it should be played, right? He's making sacrifices based on other people's opinions on how things should be, and
No.
it's not working. They're struggling against fucking BDS, right?
No.
And so in that context, given that, you know, you wouldn't have done things this way anyway, you'd have done things completely differently, I can understand your frustration there. And then think about it from the perspective of the other guy, right? The other guy has everybody playing to his five, right? And it's not working out, and he knows what they're all thinking. You know, he wants to get the fuck out of Dodge as well. You know,
Yeah.
once you have people giving in one way, right, like, it's going to affect people both ways mentally when it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Because one side is a really obvious place to play, and the other guy knows that it's all on him. You know, so once you have these not complete teams, or teams that don't play in a very complete way, they're very, very prone to this sort of thing, right? That's why very often superstar teams don't work out, because everyone wants to be that guy that has everybody, you know, play for them. Generally, that's why they were superstars. They were superstars because of a 5-man effort to make them a superstar,
Yeah.
right? And then once you put all these guys together, none of them want to ever sacrifice. Once any of them do even once and it doesn't go well, I fucking knew it, you know, blah, 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 blah. And the other guy, it knows this argument's about to happen, you know, and it's like you're going to have this serve anxiety if you run a team this way. I do think the best teams are one-trick teams, but that doesn't mean that they're, like, all playing for a lane. Because, like, FPX, for example, were a one-trick team. But their trick was that Doingby was how they fixed the whole map, right? Rather than laners and jungle support, right? It was so mid-focused for map thing. But no one was ignored in that, you know? So there was no one who was sacrificing, who was demanded to be sacrificial. You know, Doingby offered and was like, I want to super carry the whole fucking thing, right?
Yeah.
That's a way to one-trick it without causing that kind of environment.
Yeah. I don't know. It feels to me as well, and that might also be biased, but that Razork is getting a short end of the stick. Undoubtedly, you know, like we mentioned that engage earlier, where he had with Hylissang, that re-engage, where he was overly aggressive. I can see that happening, right? Like that's obviously a mistake, but where I think Razork has the capabilities of being a diverse jungler very much, but that because Fnatic as a team has such a clear way of how they want to play the game, and if that goes wrong, like, okay, how do we fix it? That it doesn't seem like Fnatic know how to fix something like this, and it's tough. Like, again, as I also said for like a bit back, it is a longer split. It is possible that they are able to pull this together and once again become a team, right? But at this point, I'm really worried about that team state. And I think what would be best for this team is maybe just, you know, like, I don't know, like do some activities together. You know, I know it's the middle of the split and you like should be super focused, but like just to get your mind off this constant, okay, we are in this race, we have to perform every single week, otherwise the consequences at the end are going to be dire. Like, I think the way I see this team play and interact right now, they need to take a breather, because I don't know, like Wunder doesn't strike me as somebody who's gonna stress a lot. Humanoid is not somebody who's gonna strike me as somebody who stresses a lot or worries about these things. But at some point, maybe they should, they should care about being able to fix these teams and putting this together. Now, obviously, I don't know if they maybe are trying this behind the scenes, but at least at this point, it doesn't seems to be seem to be very successful. If they are trying it, so if they are not trying it, try it. Please start.
I mean, I
definitely
assume that those guys are caring and trying about this stuff, right? For sure. Like,
yeah,
especially on Humanoid's case. But it's like there's only so much you can do at some point.
yeah, there is.
But yeah.
Like
But by what you described to me is not a team that has people in that 5-man who don't care. They will definitely care if they're rushing off stage like that, you know?
Yeah. I will say like about Wunder, I think he was probably their best player in the weekend. Like this guy is so solid. Yeah, he was super. Also in that BDS game, he was like the one keeping them in that game very much with his Gragas ults and his engages.
Which is what Gragas is supposed to do, but it was the point where he was engaging, which was really impressive, and the angles he was finding for that, and how he was splitting the team with that. That was so good.
Yeah. So like there's definite hope, for Fnatic. They have the talented players, and I do all of these players want to win. It's just at this point it seems to me that because they haven't fully figured out how they should operate at this point, maybe it's the patch or whatever, I don't know, that it's just spiraling a bit. And they can win against a team like BDS, whose late game is just not good. it's
win comfortably is what they need to try to do, right? Like they're not a last place team, you know. They're technically equals third. They like this isn't a team that would strike Fnatic fans with confidence right now.
No,
especially not compared to the past.
Yeah, and it's sad because like all of these players are as I've said a few times now, but they're super talented, and like this is a team I want to see win because they have all this talent, right? And if it's unlocked, as we saw a bit in spring, it's so cool to watch. Like they're so good. I just hope that they find a moment of peace and a moment to reset things and like back to basics about how do they want to do this. So we'll see about them. Who do we have then? We have talked about Excel, Fnatic, Mad Lions, Rogue, Misfits, and BDS.
Yeah, we've kind of talked about all of them at some point. I guess maybe we could talk more about G2 though, because we have not hyper focused on them or something.
I'll be honest. I didn't think their games were particularly interesting because I will say that the one against BDS that they lost kept going 0-3 early. It was just like I tweeted this as well. It's like at some point he completely popped off on the RE. So I was thinking he's just giving them like some advantage, to make the playing ground more even. But obviously in the end they did lose.
Yeah, I mean they were sacrificing. Hecarim was sacrificing jungle to camp him. All right, like they were losing out for it. The economy they were denying Caps, they were denying Hecarim as well. So it wasn't like he was just perma out of position or something, No. Their win was hilarious though against Vitality because they broke out the Yasuo. But this was so funny live viewing it because with those bans, when Vitality first picked Ahri, it's like, so it's going to be a Yasuo game. And then they lock Senna Wukong. It's like, this is perfect setup for a Yasuo game.
Yeah.
And then Vitality go like Viego GP, see Kel an enemy, and then they ban Corki. And I want to I'm tearing my hair out on stream at this point. And then it's Swain, and it's like, come on, man. And then they lock Yasuo. Yeah. I don't know. Like they went Xayah as well. This is the most obvious Yasuo game. I didn't expect it to be Yasuo bot. I thought that they would probably go with Yasuo mid into Ahri there. But going Yasuo bot when you see Xayah Nautilus makes sense to me because you're going to be able to control lane priorities with Senna. And the big thing with Yasuo bot is if you can contest them hard level 2. right? You can really destroy them. You win basically any 3v3 skirmish on bot side of this. And you can definitely play Wukong to do early ganks on bot while Viego tries to farm, right? So if they try to do something like that, that would be really interesting. You used to do this setup with Elise as well for like mixed damage. But yeah, I thought they had really good tools here for an obvious Yasuo game. They seem to love doing Yasuo Yone, these skill check compositions. They accept a durability meta means less assassins, but they also are like, but it means more fighters. So they're just spamming these, and I love that about them. It makes their game so entertaining, right?
Yeah, I mean, if anything, G2 will always be entertaining, right? That's
true.
Yeah, they'll always do
true.
this. They also had like the Senna Sion with Reckless and Mickey last year was also super fun to watch. But this seems to be more of a trend, as you rightly point out. I think at this point it's just remember like when they played Pyke in every position. Like maybe just gonna try this with Yasuo now. It's like, okay, if you want to be in G2, you have to be able to play Yasuo on stage and win with it. And this is the test, the ultimate test. We're actually gonna try this. But I was very impressed with actually with Flakkage Yasuo. I did not expect him to be able to pull it off, but he played well. Obviously, he had a team built around it to work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was impressed. And surprised as well when they looked in Swain. I was like, okay, you know, like I see what they're doing there. Maybe it's gonna be a Swain bot, and then let Caps pop off on the Yasuo because he likes to do that so much. And you have the Wukong there to help him. Complete surprise, but it worked out very well, and it was super fun to watch. I did. Let's see. I made some notes about that game as well, where I thought, oh yeah, there we go. That especially G2 in the early game responded very well because Vitality seemed to want to punish the bot lane very much, but G2 responded well to that actually. That stood out to me, and from there they just kind of gradually took over the game. And obviously once Broken Blade hit level 16 on kill, it was over.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, I remember this. Yeah. So this was super sacrificial by Caps, actually, like the teleport on towards bot side, because he has a really bad
Can you make it
wave
full screen?
state. Yeah, I'll full screen it. I'll full screen it. Yeah, cool. Yeah. So this early crap. So I was disappointed that they didn't go for early dives on bot side. I was actually really confused that Wukong was pathing like bot to top here, right? Because I thought this would just be a path towards bot side and try to play heavy. Instead, what they did is they did this early push into bounce back, and then I figured maybe then on Wukong's reset they're going to try to heavy contest bot side or something. But Wukong just straight full clears. This I didn't expect, which is Caps' teleport, because this wave state on mid is bouncing fully back in towards Perks, and Caps is going to teleport mid. So the moment teleport bot. So the moment, the moment Caps does this, Perks can respond by going back to mid, pushing one, recalling, teleporting in, and then holding Caps, right? And if he holds Caps there, Caps is there on no mana, no teleport, and the only way that he gets a recall off is if he loses both wave priority and minions, right? So from this situation, it should actually be really good. What I loved was G2's response to that, because so they do this, right? Caps is now back on midsection, right? He hasn't recalled yet. They have to fix the wave. He's low HP, low mana. Perks recalled and teleported back in, which is what you should do in this situation, right? G2 now have Yankos oinking mid, right? And now, here, they just end up like free fighting, but look at the Senna rotation, right? Senna's moving towards mid, and look at Yasuo. Yasuo's moving mid as well. They all understand that what they have to do here is get this crashing, right? And Vitality are trying heavy, like Perks here is trying to keep Caps in lane by trying to get a freeze on the next. But G2 have fought far enough ahead to drag Yasuo here as well, right? So they get the crash on bot side, and they 4-man mid just to fix this. So yes, Caps did play sacrificial somewhat to defend them bot, but then it all turns into this play to fix his lane on mid that they also do as a team, right? Doesn't matter, top never matters. If you're a top laner, you're not really playing weak. Then it turns into this early skirmish. The good thing here is now Caps can get a good wave no matter what. It turns into this fight, which is really, really good for Yasuo. Yasuo will win all these early skirmishes anyway. So this back and forth, if Fnatic was playing a normal AD carry, I don't even think he would be able to be as impactful as he was on the Yasuo here on the early skirmish. But I wonder if you could systematize this, right? If you could consciously think, yes, you'll have to defend bot side early with your teleport, but then when they're trying to contest the push on the next wave on mid, we'll have the advantage bot, so we can shift our bot in towards mid section and we have better skirmishing. You know, I love this whole scenario. This whole scenario is
I think
really
they talked extensively on broadcast as well about fixing that mid wave and that skirmish about it. It was super interesting to see how that was happening. They did mention though that in the meantime Karzi was farming bot for a whole time, but you think that was inconsequential to how the game would play out?
Well, because Karzi is right. So here, Karzi catches the wave on bot. Right now, all of these minions that Flakked has on bot are not actually being killed. Karzi slow pushes it out, so the previous wave stacked. He's lost maybe 1 or 2 minions at this point, right? And now the wave is crashing in, right? Yeah. At this point, Flakked could be losing minions, but Flakked has picked up kills, right? Well, actually, Targamas stole that fucking kill from him, but he's picked up XP kills and he's picking up all of the waves here, right? That definitely strikes me as fully worth. Now, in a scenario where Vitality aren't heavy contesting this, right? You just send Flakked back towards bot side, right? But either way, you're going to translate the farm on towards Flakked in midsection from bot anyway. Right now, like, if there's a cannon in that wave, then theoretically, Wukong was they never catch this. They never catch this. But I think it's perfectly fine to do what they ended up doing here. If it doesn't turn into a hard contest, you'll still be able to catch the wave on bot. If it turns into a hard contest, you win. So no matter what, it's the right decision to leave that wave crashing on bot side, right? Okay. So yeah, that's my opinion on it.
Yep. I mean, overall, as I said earlier when we were discussing the BDS as well, I think I'm not really worried about the G2 at all. It seems that they're just having a lot of fun in their games at this point. And this is a team that very much needs to have fun. They've always had that identity. Maybe it's just Caps and Jankos who bring that, or like who they also build around with players who need to have fun. Especially Broken Blade and Flakked are such trolls. Did you see that segment that they did during the break where they were just interviewing each other like behind the scene? Oh man. Because I
don't watch any of this stuff.
no, I mean, they had like an hour break, right? When the Vitality game was paused.
Yeah.
And because they were so desperately looking for time, like I think the LEC production went backstage and G2 was already there because they had to play like 2 games later, I think. But you already arrive a bit earlier.
Yeah.
And they just said like, hey, does anybody of you want to do any broadcast or something like this? And then Flakked and Broken Blade said, yeah, sure. And they just walked. They did just this segment with guided by Quickshot, but Quickshot just said like, okay, you guys interview each other. And they were just literally in front of the camera, just interviewing each other, just making content, having fun. And these guys it's so fun to watch. Like these players, they're in the break, everything is shit, but they're stepping up to do something fun. And just meme with each other and goof around. But I think that's also reflected in how G2 likes to play the game. Obviously, they know when to get serious and when to pump the gas, you know. But during these regular split games, I'm not worried at all about them having a loss against a team like BDS. It feels like you know, they understand maybe a bit better what the limits are of what they can and cannot do, but they're playing around. They're having fun, and when push comes to shove, they will definitely step it up. At least we've seen how good they are when they are just able to skill check opponents. So I'm not worried at all about G2 in any way whatsoever at this point.
Yeah, I just want to point out that at this point where Yasuo recalls before he goes mid, he is. I mean, he's a full wave ahead anyway, because of the last play, and he's denying Karzi an additional wave on the tower here. So this is so he can actually afford to sacrifice a wave on bot side for a skirmish on mid anyway, even if the skirmish was like 50-50. But here, because you win the skirmish no matter what, you always do that. When it comes to like content on LEC, if I'm live viewing, I can't watch it anyway, because I can't play the sound or anything, right?
Sure, yeah.
And generally, if I'm watching on my own, I'm watching kind of like how I show you guys on this show. Like I kind of 2 times it and I skip through it, and see what all the movements were and then isolate them and blah, blah. I don't listen to the cast or anything like that. Pretty sure at the point where they're playing that G2 thing, I was talking about like why constitutions are inherently bad or something on stream. It was a long hour. Oh my God, it was a long hour. But yeah.
Yeah. It was a very long hour. Yeah, also sitting in the audience, like people are just there. Okay, well, what the hell do we do now? But they managed. Hopefully, it's the last time that will happen. This split. All right. I mean, we haven't really have we really talked about Astralis? So there's Astralis.
A bit. I can talk about more. Yeah.
Vitality in SK and how far are we into? Okay, so we have a bit. A consistent for me with Astralis, let's start with them then, was Visicchachi dying a lot. Actually, also in the game against SK, where it was a GP versus a kill, I think. Yeah. So Astralis, they managed to bully Genox in top lane, and they get first blood, which obviously, if you're playing kill, is very nice. Like you're not supposed to win a lot anyway. But and you get online later, so getting any advantage early is good. But then Chachi didn't really seem to understand. Like maybe he gets a bit cocky in the lane or something because he was overextended twice and he died twice, and basically everything that he had been able to accumulate in the lane was gone. So that was something, and he also had a bit of trouble against Rogue. They played, right? Yeah, but that was later on where he got caught off guard and Rogue was able to turn the game, well, not entirely around, but push their advantages further because Chachi got caught out. Maybe I'm harping too much on one guy because I think for Astralis, he is their shot caller, kind of, from what I've understood, is that he is the one who takes the lead and tells the team what to do, which from my point of view, I'm not sure if a top laner is somebody who should do that because they're so separated from the rest of the map.
It normally ends up being them, actually, in my experience.
Because I would be inclined to say like maybe a support, a mid, or a jungler is much better suited for something like this. But
for early game, support jungle for early game for sure. But I see frequently top laners do that, right? Like Soaz, for example, will turn into a shot caller top lane if you put him on a split pusher, because you need the map to pivot around you and your movements, or you put him on an engage, and then you need the map to pivot around you and your map movements because you are the guy that needs to start the fight. So then top laners end up being the guys being like, I can shift now, you need to do this, blah, 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 right? Actually, they naturally fall into a mid to late game shot caller category. There's so many of them are really good shot callers, and it's clear to me that Visicchachi is calling a lot of these shifts.
Yeah.
But we also have to bear in mind, we are talking about Splice. Like this is Visicchachi, Xerxes, and Comet. They actually already know these calls, right?
Yeah.
And they're able to lead their newer players into them as well. The early game is definitely, if you give Jeonghoon Pike, then he's clearly in quite control of it. He's ahead of Xerxes on a lot of those plays. But those plays are also based around topside stuff, so I wouldn't be surprised if Visicchachi's doing it as a whole.
Yeah.
On the SK game, that struck me as like old man muscle memory, because Gangplank should be able to beat Kale there in other patches, but not since this patch. This patch, Kale actually wins a lot of matchups level 1 as well. Is not even vaguely the same beast that she used to be. But Visicchachi seemed to treat her like she was, He wasn't overextended. He literally flanked Kale to make sure that Kale had to take the max amount of DPS to fight Gangplank, He wanted the fight. He just didn't understand the power spike change because he's so used to a version of Kale that's just weak at these points. Whereas Kale can beat that with, her eyes closed at this point. So yeah, that was my interpretation there. I am again quite impressed by how much more active Xerxes being around the map. The most active around the map still is Jeonghoon's Pike. When Jeonghoon's not on Pike, the dramatic change in his priorities is like he's a completely different player if he's not on Pike. So against these guys, I just ban Pike. Targeting top would take a group coordination because Visicchachi will make it a group coordination. I'm still very impressed by Dejal. in mid game, a lot of the best picks they do, Dejor has some weird, funky collapse that I just wasn't expecting. It's like, oh wait, he's here, and I have to rewind, you know. So I'm still really, really impressed by him. And I think so long as they play tight like this, they'll still net wins early. But it's like there are so many individual things that they have to fix versus a team like BDS, right? Where BDS are so close to greatness if they make like one or two slight more consistent changes on their part,
so
right?
nudge in the right direction for them.
Yeah. Whereas I think, Vizichachi needs to grow some more hands, and understand matchups better, and they need to, get Pike, and shit like this.
I mean, ultimately, Astralis is now 3-2, but consider who they've won against. It's SK, BDS, and Misfits.
Yeah.
Which are pretty inarguably the three worst teams at this point in the LEC. So it is, and against G2 and against Rogue, they lost. And in that Rogue game, actually, I think they were doing pretty okay for the most part.
I like the plan.
Yeah, but
it was a really good one.
Yeah, it was a good plan, but ultimately, I guess maybe it's just the Rogue being veterans or something, like as a unit a bit more than rather than Astralis, who have come back together only for this split, and with two non-splice players, I guess is what you can call them, on it, that they are trying to figure out some things. But I don't know, like if these guys play against a team like Vitality, which I think might actually be happening this week. Further on, it's Vitality SK and it's Vitality Astralis. Yeah, I see a world where this Astralis beats Vitality.
I can see a world there too.
Yeah, because it's that they're not terrible. They have their plans, and sometimes it feels to me more that this team doesn't really know how to shift if the plans don't exactly go according to how they want them to go. But that's something that can develop over time as well.
Well, they also keep picking counter-engaged champions, There's like so much Renata, Gangplank, Ornn, Seraphine, like really good counter-engaged champions. Veigar bot lane, and Vitality's biggest issue is still they keep grouping without perks, They just keep grouping without one of their carries, and for some weird reason, Haru just must go in now, and then the whole thing falls apart, And if they do that against Astralis will odds on have a composition that in some way, shape, or form abuses that part, right? And if they have that, then I could see Vitality throwing a lot of mid-game fights to Astralis. The way Astralis is they just get skill checked, right? And Vitality run away the game. This could also be the game that forces Vitality to examine why they keep doing these terrible groupings, which would be good. Also, just shout outs to whoever decided to draft Yone Lilia in first rotation, because that's like my favorite first rotation so far in the LEC. You are a Chad. Yeah, I mean, they're both really strong. Yone is blindable, and no one accepts this, and no one's picking, Lilia, Karthus, Udyr, all this shit, when they are objectively the strongest junglers. So you get my thumbs up, Unlimited. It's Unlimited, or is it AOD? It's AOD. Both, actually. No, they both work for it.
I mean, I think AOD is head coach. I'm not sure.
AOD is head coach,
yeah. So I'm not sure who called the shot. Obviously, also drafts are usually players weighing in on what they want to do. Maybe they had a set game plan against Rogue, right? They studied Rogue and said, okay, this is how we're just gonna draft against him, and we'll see how it does, because none of these champions are any of the champions that people ban. So
no one picked up Unlimited, actually. Yeah, it's pure AOD. Yeah, good job, AOD. There you go. Underrated support.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I'm still heading into the split. I thought this Astralis lineup could be a spanner in the works for some top teams. That is something that I still have to see actually happen. But against Rogue, I saw some of it, and I can see that given the right circumstance, they actually can be that team. So I'm actually very much looking forward to the game against Vitality, because I think that will be a fun one for sure. Do you want to speak any more about Vitality? I personally don't have
Uh,
much actually about Vitality.
yeah, I mean, I went over one of their games already early
Yeah,
in as
exactly.
well. So like, yeah,
And
no, I don't
I
really have
mean,
that much to add.
no, like against Excel, they get kind of clapped.
Self-made was the problem.jpg.
Always, he always is, yeah.
Yeah,
And then against G2, yeah. I mean, we discussed both of their games actually
yeah,
already. What ran, well, rather what the other team was able to do against them so well.
yeah.
Okay, we do have to talk a bit more about this. We can't just skip. Like last week, it was a 1 minute in light of like a 40-minute discussion about Rogue.
My
So
mother, my mother never said this to me, but everyone always claims their mum said this. If you don't have something nice to say about someone, don't say anything at all.
oh
So
yeah,
I will
no,
plead the fifth if you must. Like we've talked about them every now and again when we talk about how other teams played against them.
yeah,
Like ultimately, I don't want to drag on the team that's down, and I also don't want to lie about good things about them because I don't really see much good right now.
mm-hmm.
They don't have any systems early to critique at all, right? The one time I've seen them do quite well was when Certus was running around like a madman, but it's not like every single rotation he did was good anyway. That's still something that was open to abuse.
Mm.
And yeah, I don't really have anything to add on the things I've already said about them.
Yeah,
You can catch people on rotations sometimes, nice, but those are like in-game calls that can't be practiced and can't be prepped and don't show development. They just show like they're still quite solo queue. So
you don't.
the team just overall seems weak. I don't want to rag on them.
Yeah, but is this a team where you see like with these players that there's gonna be like that they have the potential to do something?
I mean, this is.
Yeah, because
I
like
don't.
okay,
I don't even
listen,
want. I
listen.
don't want to answer
No,
that because I
no, but
want
I
to be
mean, like
mean.
with like we've seen Genex be a solid top laner in the past, right? We have seen Gilius had the pop off performance during the Schalke Miracle run. Obviously, well, you already mentioned Certus. If he's running around like a madman, they're able to do something. So there's clearly something that he can do well, but that you can build on. And then you have a bot lane who also played together last year. Yeah, with Treats and Jesu, right? But there was this weird thing where at some point they had Treats in the jungle and they had what's his name again? Jezzy's as the support coming in, like as a coach subbing
Let's
in
not
stuff.
talk about that horrible,
Yeah, no, that
horrible
was
period
oh
in
my god.
European history.
Yeah, that's a black page. So, but I don't know. For me, I will talk a bit about SK then. Like as I mentioned earlier, I think this team just if they find an advantage, they have such a big difficulty leveraging it. Against Astralis, they were able to catch Vizic Chachi a few times, but then that all faded away. Against Misfits, they were able to, as you mentioned, catch I think it was Slatan and Mirza at some points in a rotation, but they don't utilize any of that advantage that creates on the map very well.
Yeah.
They try to contest the Baron and they lose that fight. And um, I think maybe a solo queue experience might be the best way to describe it, as you hinted at. But yeah, it's sad
They have
to
no
see.
systems.
Yeah, they have no they don't have these systems where they realize okay, we just got this on the map. This is how we should proceed from here.
No.
And losing against an Astralis and a Misfits is probably the worst thing that could happen to you as a team. Like that doesn't want to be last because together with BDS, I guess, who you did beat in the first week, like those are the teams that you will have to beat later on. But the one thing I will say for them is that at least their team environment still seems to be pretty decent, even in spite of the losses. So that might be something that later on in the split they can bank on as they try to figure out what to do. Because if you have a bad team environment and you are playing terribly, then that is a risk for spiraling. But I don't think this is a team that could spiral to becoming worse. A very mean person might say they can't get any worse. They can get worse. They could have lost against BDS, but I think that this is a team that just needs to maybe do the same thing that you said earlier. Just look at one of the teams, like maybe a Mad Lions or maybe an Excel, and say we're gonna copy this. what they're doing. We're just gonna mimic how they want to play and try to work towards something like this and see if it works. Try to find a system that you can play around. Because I want to see as many teams as be as competitive as possible. But it's definitely tough to see now for SK Gaming.
The difference is that with Misfits, I see multiple players on their team that are legitimately really good at the game, and I haven't seen that from SK. That's the difference.
Yeah.
The players that are set in their ways, they are set in some really bad ways, and I don't. Yeah,
Okay.
like it's difficult for me to see a way out for them.
All right. Have we then talked about every team already? I think so.
We've talked about everyone at least once, yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about every team. All right, that's good then. Is there anything more generic you want to add, or are we gonna go to the best in the West part where we tell which player we think deserves the trophy this week? I don't know if you have anyone in mind yet. If not, I can talk about mine already.
Yeah, go talk about yours, actually.
Sure.
It's a difficult one for me.
It is a difficult one because we saw a few. Like, I'm not somebody who says it's always going to be a team that goes 2-0, but generally speaking, you would find yourself saying, okay, it's a team that goes 2-0 because they have to do something right. And between those, it's only Rogue and Excel. But for me, this week, it's going to be Marcoon, actually. People might call me out on Dutch bias because he's the only Dutch player in the league, but I'm probably I have the least interest in supporting anything for my country of anybody. Like on Twitter or the Netherlands, I don't give a crap about about how the Netherlands is represented in esports. I just want to watch the best teams play, whoever it is. But regardless, I think Marcoon was actually in the first Vitality game that got cancelled. He was super proactive and he was constantly basically haunting Vitality. He was putting them their backs against the wall. And then in the second game, admittedly, he had a bit of a not as impressive of a game as he had in the first one, but he was still very decisive in the skirmishes that broke out, and also very actively trying to support his lanes, which is, as we all know now, what junglers apparently always have to do. But and obviously in the game that they played, hang on, I forgot my notes. So they played Vitality and what did they play? Excel. Oh, Mad, obviously. Yeah, Mad Lions. He was able to get this super early lead for them and snowballed that so well. He was there around every objective where he needed to be. Super proactive, super aggressive, and for me was the key factor that Excel maybe not necessarily won all their games because they were playing well as a team, but at least he was the one who got them the win so convincingly from my point of view. So I'm gonna give it to Marcoon, my best in the West title for this week.
Despite how the second half of the second game went, I'd probably give it to Shinkov because he is the reason that BDS were in the game in both of the early games, and yeah, like he carried the whole thing. So I'd have to say Shinkov.
Okay.
Even though they didn't win the second game, as it was also partly on him. That just means he had the most impact of any player. So
yeah, so more Skarner, please. Sansara will be proud.
There you go.
Yeah, also Trundle actually.
Nishinkov was doing Skarner before it was cool, right?
Was he?
Yeah, no, he had like 50 games on it in the ERLs, both in Poland and in France and blah blah blah. Like he was everywhere. You know, Shinkov was almost the first person to win like every ERL. Like he won Poland. I'm pretty sure. So he won France. He won Poland. He won Germany. I'm pretty sure he won Spain at some point, but I might be wrong on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was like he was doing the whole.
Actually worth looking up. Synchrof.
Yeah, I may be inting right now. So
tournament results. Oh, geez, that's a lot of results.
Yes, he's been around for a long ass time.
Let's see.
Yeah, he won. He did win Spain.
Yeah, man. Talk about a collection.
He
of
won
trophies.
Spain. He won Poland. He won France. Yeah, he didn't win Prime League.
No.
So when he was in Prime League, he was on an awful team that split, and like loads of people were rating him like C tier, D tier, blah blah blah, and I
Yeah.
was rating him S tier on all my stuff, and then he got into K Corp the next split and just immediately won. It was so funny, actually. I was on a retweet mania back then. It was good times. It was good
Nice.
times.
Nice. All right. Well,
Cool.
Marcoon and Syncroft, junglers, even though you have to play the dog now for your teams, we recognize what you're doing for the teams, definitely. But I think that
He
concludes.
does.
He does, yeah.
I'm not Dutch.
Okay. Are yeah. How many British
It's a
players?
joke.
How many British players are there actually in?
It's like one. It's
X
just Xmatic?
Xmedi, I think, right?
Is there anyone else? Yeah, is there anyone else? I'm just opening them all up. I think it's just Xmatic.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Alfari's Welsh.
Oh
British.
yeah,
There
of course, yeah.
We have a monopoly on coaches.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have Freddy, obviously.
Mac, Carter, Freddy. Yeah. Shaves on Fnatic.
Damn, it's actually quite
Canadian.
a lot. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but you know why that is. I'll give you guys the juice here, all right? Like
Okay.
the secret sauce, all right? It's purely because if you are an articulate person when you speak English, managers just assume you must also be smart.
Is that the British thing where it's like, oh, he's British, he must be smart because of the accent? Like
They're not thinking he must be smart because of the accent. They're thinking, wow, I've never heard someone speak so confidently about the game. And then the next person that they interview is some Belgian guy who's stuttering every other word because it's his second language. And they're like, well, this guy's nowhere near as confident as the first guy, no? And the first guy's like some American, Canadian, Brit, blah, blah, blah person, right? So we end up having a monopoly over it. It's literally just that. There are so many really, really smart
I mean, Dylan Falco isn't
that...
British, but obviously he's from Canada. He's also very articulate.
He's Canadian.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, if people watching examine their biases, they'll realize
natively English speaking person. Yeah.
Yeah, be native English, and you could easily grab a coaching job. You can scam people into thinking you're smart. No joke. Whippo's English is so fucking good, so everyone assumes he's really smart, right? But it's like Humanoid, for example. No one immediately thinks about him when they think about geniuses, even though he definitely is, right? Like but it's purely because he's not articulate, right? As articulate in English as other people are. If you're articulate, able to do what I'm doing right now, you can get anyone to think it. And that's why there's so many English coaches. That's literally why. I'm not joking. That's just why. Like, because you only have to impress the people above, not the people below. It's the people above.
That's true. Yeah. And in many cases, I'm not gonna say all cases, but like higher management. In esports organization don't generally come from a background where they know a lot of in-depth about League of Legends. So
yeah, of course, that's just more true these days than it ever was before.
Yeah, it's suits who are in charge and think, okay, well, this person sounds good.
The investor doesn't know.
No,
he just knows
not saying that any of the British coaches here are necessarily like bad coaches or anything. Obviously, I have no idea what you do behind the scenes, but it is definitely fun. Fun to see so many of them in the league. All right, now we're actually gonna round it up. Thank you so much for watching this Best in the West episode. We'll be back next week, so stay tuned for that one and enjoy this LEC weekend. There's definitely some good ones on the menu, and we'll be back to talk about those next week. So see you then.